Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the ItCast Real Talk on Sex. I am your host, Nika Sherelle. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. And through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. This episode is brought to you by the House of Sherelle. You can check us out at nikasherelles.com and you can check out our store at triggerhappytoy.com. We are also brought to you by the International Institute for Sexual Empowerment, a 501(c)(3) that creates safe space to talk about sex. You can find our upcoming events on our calendar at nikasherelles.com, and there's a QR code to where you can go find more about our work. If you would like to have one-on-one coaching with me, please visit my Calendly to book a free connection session and ask us anything. We want to hear from you. We want to know what's going on in your world so that we can really produce amazing content. You can get access to our bonus content on Patreon, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and share with your community. All right, let's dive in. So, this is our Father's Day episode. I'm very, very excited about that. Thank you, everyone out there, for joining us. The topic is Real Talk on Being America's Most Unwanted. Today in the booth, we have Duwayne Langham. Duwayne is a dedicated masculinity architect who focuses on bringing balance and understanding to the divine masculine and feminine energies within us all. His work aims to foster harmonious living and enhance relationships by aligning these essential aspects of our nature. Duwayne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Nika, I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. We are so happy to have you. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is tell us a little bit about yourself, how you define, and why you choose to do this show.
Awesome. Awesome. So I am masculinity architect Duwayne Langham, 39 years of age, black male. I'm a father. I'm a bit of an enigma of a human being, as I like to say it. So you know me here as a masculinity architect. I'm a systems engineer, technology in the background, creative influencer, if you could say that. I think I'm owning on to that. But really, I am passionate about what I heard inside of this space and what has me be here. Human beings actualized, like our full potential. I believe every human being born as a child of God is just infinite possibility. And I'm all for shining a light to have us tap into that. And I loved what you said, everybody being loved, everybody being seen, everybody being understood, and just unlocking that source, that power. That's what I'm all about.
I love it. I love that. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that we've discussed. One of the things that came up is being an only child and being raised in a single mother home. So, can you share
Mm.
with us about what that was like for you?
Yes, it's a powerful experience, one that I would say has its advantages and disadvantages. The first, I've had the experience of being spoiled, getting all the attention, being the primary, and all the things that come with being an only child. And at the same time, I will say that's honestly a bit of a crux. As I age and mature over time. I mean, these are things that I'm still learning to this day, almost 40 years old, how to adapt, adjust, and mix in with everyone when on a daily basis I'm used to it being just me. And of course, from that, from a single parent, literally being just me, not only me as, no siblings or the kids around, but me as being the only subject matter, the only focus of attention. And so that's a different space when you culturally realize, others can be left with something depending on how you interact. I may be fine because I'm so self sufficient, self contained. I don't necessarily look for attention because I'm not used to getting that. And so that has its brush ins. The biggest thing I think portraying from my work as a masculinity architect. And by that, I work in the divine masculine and feminine energy. So when I hear single parent, immediately what I'm aware of is that there's a missing. The missing of balance. And so while I had a mother holding the space kicking ass, taking names, and making sure to keep me safe, provided for, and everything. She had to do her best to balance both. And it's not a, as I'm, especially as a man, a father, have been a husband, as I'm living my adult life as a man, that's something that to put on the shoulders of a single mother is just merely impossible, and vice versa. It would be no different. Myself as a father, now separated, even the things that I do by myself, I absolutely value the partnership because it brings the balance. I'm all about that balance. You got to have both sides. So, yeah, I hope that speaks to and answers, to your question. That's what my upbringing was like. It had the dichotomy of the good and the bad, all of it.
Yes, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I love that you're pointing to both sides of that when it comes to single parenthood, whether it's fatherhood or motherhood, not having the whole and complete balance of what's available.
Mhm.
One of the things that you mentioned is handicapped leaders. Like you
Mhm.
had those things, but also in the missing space of that. Can you share more about what that? Yeah, come on.
Yes, so deep, so deep. Because, leadership, right? Leadership is a calling to what's ahead, what lies ahead, and especially when it comes to who's going to be in the lead, who's going to make the decisions to decide. Just coming down to the language of it, that is not something that is suited for feminine energy, right? And I say that because the choice, the FOMO, fear of missing out, cutting off someone's feelings, what's going to be in the best interest for everyone, it gives an overwhelm to even my men and women, our feminine energy of, well, this can't be left out. So a leader must have that masculine, logical, pragmatic, just what's the data of it, make a decision, choice, we go forward, progress, and action. And when that is missing, the whole handicap leadership is a principle, like I was talking about, being raised by a single parent and not having the father figure. So we're specifically speaking to the role of, and this is great for a Father's Day episode, we're in a generation. I'm just a product of an environment of men growing from boys, young men, adolescents into adulthood who are expected to lead a household, expected to lead a partnership, expected to lead in society. And, regardless of the political politeness and everything, if the shit hits the fan, bombs are dropping, nuclear holocaust, whatever, zombie apocalypse, we're going to need leadership. We're going to need men to step into those roles. And for generations, we are handicapped because, as I'm a product of that, you haven't had that example. So,
Mm,
how one day are you expected to be responsible to have this weight on your shoulders and not even just to do a decent job, just to not have everything implode on itself, and at the same time be a human being. You've never seen it, you've never experienced it, you never witnessed it, nobody taught it to you, and now go figure it out, do a good job, and don't fuck it up. Because we will be looking at you. We will be shaking the finger just the same. You should have known better. I could have done better. You should have done it this way, that, and the other. And to the overall point where I started about leadership, that is leadership. Nobody wants to be a leader. Leadership is a calling inside. It's something you're called to. You see that something is missing, you see that something needs to change, and you are called to make that difference and leave something better behind, is my personal belief and outlook. So when it's the job nobody wants to do, and yet by birth, just because of your anatomy, it's expected of you socially, like that's just the standard, you are handicapped to figure that out. And I say this as a man about to turn my 40th year, already having had a marriage, already having had two children, daughters at that, to figure out, oh, like there's a way to do this thing and a way that I want this thing done. And I'm just putting the pieces together. And I study this, I teach this, I coach this. Like that's a hell of a handicap, I'm trying to catch up in the race and didn't have the shoes, What am I doing here?
right.
That's the world of it. Handicap leadership, it's really starting with the handicap. There's no other way to really describe it for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We learn as we teach.
Mm, yes, yes.
Um,
That's the best way to say the best way to learn something is to be able to teach it to someone else. And I think that speaks volumes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you pointed to. First off, I'm mad at you with the zombie apocalypse. I just had to call that out.
I don't believe it's a possibility. And you get what I'm saying.
It comes down to it.
Exactly.
But I love what you were pointing to with the fact that they're masculine and feminine energies. So we're not talking about men, we're not talking about women, and we're talking about the requirement of masculinity in the space of leadership. So not having that masculine figurehead in a major regard does take a lot away from who the child gets to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And bringing balance back to all of it, I'm going to add some spice on it. That leadership, mature masculine leadership,
Mm,
because mature masculine leadership is not a, oh, give me the crown, this is me, this is a good fit. Like, no, because there's leadership and value coming from that feminine energy just as much. And so the context of being able to, like, yes, masculine may step out front in the lead and bear the brunt, right? And biologically we can even see that larger lung capacity, bone density, all those things that naturally happen. There's still the consideration for the naturally inclined intuition, wisdom, guidance, tapping into source, being connected to everyone and everything else. That just being willing to step out front, that's only half the battle. If you haven't actually matured, and this is why I say stepping into 40, I've paid the bills, been a provider, done the things that I saw out there. Oh yeah, this is how you. I want kids. This is how you father. I want a woman in my life. This is how I be a man, be a husband. I can go do all these things, and to mature. And here's the secret to all of that behind masculine energy. Masculine and majority part men learn through experience.
mm,
You cannot be taught or told. That's why even where I started my work, and we'll come in and out of this of the conversation, I started my work with offering a men's rite of passage, because you cannot be told or instructed. You can't sit in a class and learn how to kill a lion or a wolf. You need to go out there and feel the cold, feel the sensations, feel the fear, have that experience, especially along with the other masculine of the tribe, to pass that wisdom down. There's so much inside of the maturity that it even adds a challenge to the work that I teach, because we're learning from something that's almost endangered and extinct. Proper, mature, masculine energy is something that it has to be groomed and refined. It doesn't actually show up well in today's society, and that's for better and worse.
yeah.
But that's the truth of it, and that's the handicap part. Something that's endangered and extinct, and its raw essence just isn't acceptable anymore. And you're supposed to learn from that and mature in that, and the only way to learn it is to do it. You see this loop of handicap. That's how do you figure this out? How do you get on top? Where do I start? You can't win for losing.
Yes, yes. I love that you pointed out too that the expectation, there's an expectation on men, the masculine body, the masculine type, that you are going to live up to this ideal of masculinity. And the problem is that the ideal of masculinity is not the mature masculinity that you're talking about. It's a completely different conversation. And I'd say like the compensating for the lack of what's there, for the lack of what's taught. It's major. Let's talk a bit about expectations. And I got a note around stereotypes here. So,
It's so very deep, because coming back to that, right? The stereotype is that you're modeling or mapping, attempting to duplicate something that's not around, doesn't exist. You've only seen it out there. You don't know how to do it. And so then you're stepping into the expectations that, oh, when it's there, it's solid. When it's there, it's grounded. When it's a good thing, it just knows what to do, decisiveness, and all this, that, and the other, without the maturity, the refinement, which teaches humbleness,
mhm,
humility, that it only got that good through practice. It only got that good through failure, lessons learned. It only got that good because it was poured into from the legacy of generations and leaders and role models before. And so, without those missing pieces of refinement and maturity that a rite of passage would naturally have, you now end up with imitators putting on a front and a bravado, trying not to get called out, trying not to mess up, trying to be so perfect, which was never the game, period. And so that's that falsity. And so what that also does, if you can only imagine, it puts us in a box.
mhm,
It's seen as the most prestige, whoever wears the crown, whoever's out front, whoever's the leader, whoever's the biggest and baddest. And so to fake being that, or the psychological balance of even trying to step into those shoes and get it right, because you're still a human being in the background of all of it, it gives you a box of don't mess up, don't look this way, don't step out of place. And that's in general of masculinity, let alone are you a black man? Which side of town are you growing up in? Because to that box and expectations, as we all know, there's a difference in a domesticated dog, pet, and a wolf out in the wild. You can be
Mm-hmm.
the biggest and baddest on the block, getting walked with your leash and your collar and eating out of your bowl. But then there's you have to hunt what you kill out in the wild, and that's a whole nother masculine expression. And that literally translates the exact same way because expectations in certain communities, certain cultures, certain races, ethnicities, nationalities, we all have these boxes that we have to fit in. And with all the beautiful thing about all the inclusiveness that's coming up now is we recognize the human experience of all of it, and so many more voices and lights are getting shed and voices are being heard that, oh, that's not actually me. I had to do that because everybody around me, I said that product of the environment. As we have this conversation, I consider myself an intelligent individual. I consider myself articulate. I haven't always grown up in environments where how I communicate, express, and talk is accepted.
Yeah.
I'm around the conversations. Oh, you talk white. I'm educated. Oh, I can articulate my words. Like
Mhm.
this way, you don't speak good American kind of thing. It's like, wait a minute, I think you missed the point. That's not how this works. That's not what this is about. But those are the boxes that we're expected to show up to be leaders. We're expected to show up and lead others. We're expected to guide, take on all that weight and pressure, and let alone inside of it, there's a little boy who has not seen it, not been told how to do it, and is automatically given as soon as you step out of this box.
Mhm.
What's wrong with you? Well, ain't nobody gonna trust that. Ain't nobody gonna get behind that. Ain't gonna follow you. Ain't no girl's gonna give you play. Like all of it, the whole mix of life, and that's one of the what I think conversations like this, including everyone shining a light to everyone and everything, is the reality of all of it. As human beings, we're figuring shit out. Like we're living life be life in. And it's so much deeper than those expectations. And if we can understand just the things we're talking about, leadership, masculinity, even the maturity and refinement of masculinity, we get rid of all that shit because it's all so toxic. It's all so immature. Is the opposite. I don't even like to point to the toxicity as much as just it's out of balance. And one thing nature teaches us is that there's balance. Things can be mature with experience, or they can be immature. You just don't know any better. And what you don't know, you don't know. Hurting people hurt people. All those quotes and everything that just speak truth on the whole big picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you brought up the toxicity and the maturity. One of the things I say is that in the conversation of breaking outside of the box, I look at it as gender toxicity. It's
Mm.
not about toxic masculinity. It's not about toxic femininity, which nobody actually calls out. Um,
Facts. This is
but
fact.
even stepping into my own, I actually had a lot of toxic masculinity growing
Mm.
up. The way that I grew up in the neighborhood environment that I grew up, you had to be tough. You had to be
Mhm.
tough. You couldn't take no shit. Like there were all these different layers to it. And that drives that element of masculinity inside of us all. And it's
Mhm.
that box that's toxic. It's like, I have to live up to this checklist. And now it's like, we're breaking the box so that we can have something unique and different
Yes.
and powerful. I think
Yes.
one of the big things is how we want to keep people inside the box.
Mm. It's I think it's a survival mechanism, to be honest. What I heard, even as you were just sharing about that whole box, it's really it's symbolic of how we as human beings like to break ourselves down from the one source. Whatever you believe in, whatever you call it, all life existing is coming from one place. And just like they say, if you take the ocean as God and you take a cup of it, is that cup now any less God than when it was the whole? It's a bit different. It's a new shape and form, but it's the separation. You wouldn't. make it a us and them territory. Like now, this cup of ocean is against that big ocean. And, they be fighting in boxing. Why don't you be more like the big ocean? Where your waves at, son? I don't see no sand over there. Like, no, it's all the same thing, just a different variation of it in how life works, and that's the limitation. And so the when I say the survival is in this compartmentalized view, I'm separate from you, we're separate from them. We then have to, in our humanity, our smallness of the universe, we're a grain of sand on the beach, we have to make it so everything's normalized. I can't feel good about myself until I get you in line. Like, you need to feel standard and do it this way because I don't think that way. I don't do it that way. So let me make you wrong. You are less powerful, or it makes me insecure about what I've got over here. So it becomes that survival mechanism. When I say hurting people hurt people, if we're going through life, that is the only time that I assert, and I'm going to school for psychology, but I won't say I'm an expert. I assert that that is the only time we can actually look at life as a curse, is when we are hurting so bad. And when we're surviving through life, that is a dog eat dog, a rough experience, a challenging experience psychologically, mentally, emotionally, physical, on all aspects. And you can clearly see where that translates over into the hurting that we feel inside. We project that outside. We want to hurt others with our words, our thoughts, our actions, even subconsciously. And it's all because survival says we're alone, we're different, they're not like us, I need to come up, so they need to go down, and make all these human fallacies about the universe and life. And it just makes it so much harder. But that crab's in a bucket, always trying to pull the other down when somebody's trying to come up. Well, it doesn't work that way in my world. And instead of expanding and making room for everyone and everything, we want to keep it to that compartmentalized box so much and so often. And to your point, those walls are getting kicked down. Like, it's not even that it's perfect, because on the other side, it's now new territory to explore. And one thing I've always embraced is that it's an inclusive universe. By the time it makes it to manifestation, actualization, something we can physically touch in front of us, there's no point in fighting it. It's going to be here. Enough human beings have put the positive energy into it to cause it to manifest and be here as a thing, whether it's a thought. So many people feel this way, think this way, act this way. You might as well open up and embrace it and figure out how we can bring balance, coming back to balance, to have it all work together, because everything else, you're just wasting energy. There's positive energy, negative energy, good, bad, right, wrong, evil, God, devil, however you want to look at it. Which one are you feeding into? They say the wolf you feed most is the one that grows. So it's your
Mm.
choice.
Ooh, I like that. That was good. Thank you. One of the things, let's talk about systemic oppression and what that looks like, right? Because that's a whole new bubble.
Mm. It's almost like you have to choose which layer of systemic oppression. I'll start with the boy, the man's experience, especially with the Father's Day in the background. That's its own first oppression. We've kind of started to that conversation just in the regard of how how boys are expected to show up as leaders one day in the household and everything. And I can't, as a black man, I can't step over the generations, the decades, centuries of systematic oppression that has occurred for our experience. Again, getting back to the handicap, men alone have a handicap to show up in the world, to find themselves inside of masculinity and leadership. Black men on top of that. And to a degree, it's so deep and layered. We talked about being raised by a single mother. One of the things I mentioned was her keeping me safe and off the streets. And my mother's mantra was she wasn't going to get a knock at the door from officers about such and such has happened with your son. I'm in jail, I'm dead, so forth. So she kept me out of those environments as best as she could, being that product of an environment. And with that, that is its own unique experience, because I'm then alienated from who and what I come from and look like. And at the same time, I'm actually freed up from the majority of that oppression. When you and I talked, we were talking about the Black experience, the Black plight, the challenges and things. And I was privileged enough to enjoy a life where I wasn't crippled by that. I'm completely aware I am a large Black man walking the streets. I know what goes on out in the world. And I had enough freedom in my life experience to not feel chained, that there is something, some threat, someone, something against me in life holding me back. I always saw the equality well. America, land of the free. If I can learn it, if I can read it, I can achieve it, I can go do whatever I want. And, and in my adulthood, really getting the depth of how that has actually impacted my culture, how that impacts me still, because, like I said, being alienated, the freedom to create here and now, and I talked about it earlier, being poured into, that also means I'm completely severed and cut off from picking up the heritage, picking up the royalty. And obviously, for the case of, you and I talked about it, African American, that's a whole different species, man made.
Hmm.
Just really letting that sink in. That's a level of oppression we cannot really contemplate, because an entire race is created outside of mixing something that didn't voluntarily happen. There's a lot of mixing going on, there's a lot of blending going on from culture to culture to culture, and forced through slavery and now citizenship somewhere. That is something man made and concocted from a system of oppression. It's probably going to be another 50 to 100 years, not just cutting checks to make it better. It's like, what has been the impact
Yeah.
socially, economically, mentally, emotionally on human beings? If you
Yeah.
can imagine lab rats, that's truly what we're living through, truly the big picture. And that's where I say, just peeling back the layers, I have to speak to that, because before I can be a man in the world and find myself as a leader in masculine expression, I am a black man. And that in itself is, what does that even mean? I truly don't have the full answer for myself, because I experience it newly in every day, in every conversation. But I mean, that's a small drop in the pool of systematic oppression, as best as I can speak to it. I'm a product of that environment, clearly.
Yeah. And see, I love that we're looking at it in a very well rounded way. Because there are limitations to opportunity, there are limitations to the mindset, like you were saying. Like
Mm.
we get it's again that bubble, that box that not only are we living in, but that we get put into. So even if coming out of it, it's like, no, but this is who you are, but this is who you are based on all the stereotypes, which is ridiculous. And then,
That's that's the external, right? What
mhm,
about the internal
mhm,
effects of the systematic oppression? We talked about that. So there, systematic oppression that then has you believe,
right,
because the people before you have believed and the people before that have believed. So on top of all of that oppression, I'm now coming out of an environment where all of my aunts, uncles, mom, grandma are speaking and thinking these beliefs and values on life, having to save everywhere, money is hard to come by, having to work for. So the possibility alone, as a black boy in 1984 in America, how much do I like sports? Who can I entertain?
mm, ooh,
Beyond that, silence. How am I? I said I'm a systems engineer. I said I'm a masculinity architect. Did that stuff exist? Could I tell? Could I look around in my life and say, yeah, that's what I like. That's what I can be. That's what I want. No, that's non-existent. Survival, pay your bills, raise some kids. That was as far, that was the ceiling. And so inside of that, what I've also come to observe, as we're kicking down those walls of oppression, separation, segregation, it's actually an economical systematic oppression. Now the color isn't more or less as black and white, it's green,
mm-hmm,
it's money. It's, if you're born into an environment where money is no object, you can see the countless examples. Especially, it's easy to look at entertainment and celebrity, or even just affluence. Access to money gives a child, a human being of any color, any race, any sex, any gender background, gives them access to think and understand differently about money. My children today think completely differently about money, because they've come into an environment where they're not having their name put on the utility bill so that we can keep the lights on. They're not being told when we go in the store, you're not going to get this, don't ask me for this, don't buy. Mentally, their mind is unlocked to conversations that for generations were in place. And that alone, I talked about being freed up to, I can do anything. I can do anything inside of what I've seen before. And even with, I've had executive level parents, I've had successful careers in my family. And so I had some examples that have, let me expand a little bit further than that. And at the same time, you can see other examples. I'll just relate to the Kardashians. I think the last I saw, uh, Kylie, one of them, being a youngest billionaire, 18 years old. Like, the difference in limitations, the difference in thinking. When money is flowing and abundant opportunities are everywhere, you don't think about, well, how am I going to do this? How can I afford this? It's just, well, let me call somebody. Let me come up with an idea. Let me offer some value. Your mind hasn't even reached that access. And even for myself, stepping into ranges that were stellar by my aunts and uncles 10, 15 years ago, reaching six figures in my 30s, I had a feeling of a carpet being pulled under me. It caused stress and anxiety of, am I good enough for this? Am I worthy? Is somebody going to fire me? Am I doing the job good enough? Like, the level mentally, and that's where I say, as far as that systematic oppression, whoever's in control, whatever's in control, this is a big human being lab rat experiment, if you will, we call life. There is systematic oppression that takes impact in here, and that's the most dangerous because as we came on and I started, I'm just living a life to unlock myself and be an example because I think all of us, as soon as our heart is beating, has the potential as a child of God, source, whatever you call it, to create infinity. Wherever we live, however we cure cancers, diseases, solve global warming, travel to other planets, like the stuff that sci fi is made of is what's possible when we're stuck in survival, we're stuck in limitations, we're stuck in all these boxes mentally or doing it to each other, crabs in a bucket, like I said, that's what keeps us away from accessing that heaven on earth.
Mm, yes. Ooh, I love that. I love that. And I love that you pointed out there's a gap between where we start and where someone like Kylie Jenner starts. Like the gap to being a billionaire is way different. And
Mm-hmm.
it's unimaginable because it's such a different context of life. I want to share a little anecdote. So I'm a fine artist. I'm super creative. I've been doing this since I was 4. And I went to a fine arts high school. Part of the way through my experience, they decided that they wanted to take the magnet formation away and shift to neighborhood schools.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my mind. I was like, there's no way you can do that. There's no way you can do that. I literally went to a 98.9% Black school district. And I was like, if you do this, you're basically telling Black youth the only way to succeed is through sports or the military, because you're taking away all these additional opportunities that, like you said, there's the one mentality, there's the slavery, and then there's what's taught, following that and having to work yay so hard, and having that part reduced and limited is such a it's a profound attack at
Mm-hmm.
youth, I would say, because you're already squelching down what's possible before it even begins to grow.
So much, so much. If you don't know those concepts, those principles, business ownership, and what I'll put it on is to scale. It's not even to say like Kylie Jenner had to do something to bring value to the market in exchange and become a billionaire, not to take away from that accomplishment. The difference is it may be on equivalence for her, the same as graduating with a GED, getting a driver's license, or successfully raising children. Like when it's survival, that's the peak and top. It's just the same. It's just where you start that scale. I'm going to have to take 10 steps to make this move and get to where I want to get to. Her 10 steps might have started 50, 60, 100 steps ahead of this, just mentally.
Right.
And that difference, if everyone's brought up to a level playing field, it can be level potential. Everyone, because then that value she brought to the market, I can bring to the market. You can bring to the market. Billions of value means a billion people out there felt the need to exchange. I want that. Give me that. Here's my money. Shut up and take my money. That's the phrase. Like something has to be done or given. And we all have that potential
Yes.
when your mind is not, what am I going to eat? How am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to stay warm in the winter? How do I survive? That's what the potential of a mind can do. An 18-year-old can bring billions in value when they don't spend 18 years figuring out how they're going to eat today.
Right. Survival. Yes. Yes. Ooh, well put. Well put. That brings a few things to mind, but sticking with fatherhood, I do want to look at the fact that there is an intentional eradication of Black men in the home.
Mm,
There has been, I'd say, historically, since the dawn of Black slavery and
yes.
that experience. And so the way in which that has existed throughout America still persists.
Hmm. That's that. I love the title of this discussion because it brings chills down my spine. That America's Most Unwanted, just that play on you can't hold certain things down. What is viewed as the most threatening to what may be in power, whatever conversations, whatever people, whatever groups, is at the same time the most inspiring, the most provoking. You go back to what came up at my time, hip hop, right? Right, getting into its prime. There were days I've heard kids in what was it, middle school or high school. Oh, they'll never give a Grammy for that. They'll never get an award, an Academy Award for performing at the rap hip hop. Now, if you look at it, newscasters are speaking to it like it is the official language. They tried to quantify, oh, make it Ebonics type thing. Like, no, this is a wave, this is a movement. And to that, Black men systematically, that's the example of it. It's a dichotomy, double-edged sword, because yes, I have it the hardest by default, just because of how I look and my biology. And at the same time, I am the most admired, duplicated, replicated, because the very thing that makes it hard on me, the swagger that I'm still going to show up, that I'm still going to hold my head high, that I'm still going to be me, that you can't take the dip in my step, you can't take the song in my head, like I'm still whistling Dixie all day long, because it ain't gonna stop me. I'm still here. And that is just admirable, emulated. It's like whatever we do as a culture is soaked up, is monetized, quantified, and just becomes it, now that, like, when's, in no respect to these cultures or artistic expressions, when's the last time you heard of a non hip hop? Now it's all branded into pop. But when I grew up, there were rock and roll stars, and it was the underground. Biggie, Tupac, and even the forerunners before that. That was underground stuff. That was strictly on the streets. Nowadays, Cardi B is in the Super Bowl. Nowadays, Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart have got a campaign going on. Ushers and Macy's, like, really, like it's just the most, America's Most Wanted. That the flip on that, because America's Most Wanted is the FBI's the most dangerous, we got to get them off the streets, the war against drugs and whatever else. And you really truly look at it, well, what are, even to that, the example, war against drugs, marijuana, now it's medicinal purposes. Like, time goes and everything's flipped, all the things of how it used to be. If you look back at these systems and rules and things that have been in place, it seems like somebody was just threatened by that, or somebody couldn't monetize that. Some, I can't say the person,
Yeah.
but some conversations out there, and this is why I say again, it's no longer a color of skin. It's the color of your mind, color of your pockets. There's big money conversations that control what the terrain looks like, what society looks like, what is okay or not okay, and the things that threaten that, the things that buck against that. And unfortunately, again, coming back to this experiment of African American Black men, boys, you have brought and created the very thing that you had no idea you could not contain in the first place. And that's, again, talking to the conversation, because there are no people alive today who started that. But this is the product of that environment. And it's a whole nother debate and dialogue, because I have my own discussions as I sit back and watch the whole, well, you brought us here and threw us over in the water and it looked like this and coming up from this and chains here and now it's chains here. But just look
Mhm.
at, like I said, just the things I mentioned, Cardi B, and look at her background. Started from the bottom, now we here. Like, anything is possible, and it just keeps happening, growing, and changing. But it's insane. Life be life, and that's all I'm gonna say. I don't know how it all worked, but life be life in this joint.
Man, there was one thing in that just really, really struck me, where you said it can't be monetized. Like, if
Mm,
it can't be monetized, then it's pressed. And that, ding, 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 so very real. And the second that it can be capitalized on, everything about it changes. the conversation, the flow, the access.
Con-
That's
I have to say, because, inside of my work, men's work, masculinity, masculine architect, the biggest picture, if we look at broad scale, something that you have to understand that I kind of picked up on in college courses, political science. They ask, what is the one thing that the government can't control? And really think about that. Where you live, what you do, what you wear, what you say, and not just America, all countries. What does government not control? As long as we have the compartmentalized, even think about that. Countries, America, these lines that we make up, we're human beings, and our home is Earth. Didn't nobody buy or build this. This was all made. And so as long as we think in these compartmentalized boxes, so speaking to fathers, speaking to masculine expression, speaking to black men, thinking of all of it, right? The thing that has to be oppressed is when countries, those invisible lines, the states, the country, the larger, the economics of it, wherever those invisible man made lines are, things inside of that have to be controlled systematically to work. When something bigger comes along, something different comes along and challenges that, it has to be taken out. Now, I'm not starting any revolutions or anything. And at the same time, just for every individual human being, I want to plant the seed to really look at life, what you're here for, what you're about, what your legacy is, and what's possible for humanity. You can see it coming up everywhere. One of the examples in our country would be Donald Trump. If you're looking at news in other countries, there are other dictators,
mhm.
oppressors, Stalin, whole models of power that are broken systems that don't take from the smallest to the large of us all as a whole into consideration. When you get out of thinking of that, this is why the conversation for black men in America, most wanted, unwanted, like starts to really at a big scale make sense, because that's the bigger conversation. It is all about control. The control that keeps that money flowing, the control that keeps somebody, someone, something, some conversations peace, or keeps the gears of the machine greased. That is what is always going to be most important. Some could call it the almighty dollar, but that's the systems of control when you're talking about systematic oppression, and going all the way back to what nobody wants to be, a leader. As men, as black men, those are the conversations you truly have to step into. And I say this as a message because I don't fully think that we have grasped and understood what is at stake for being role models. Every young brother, or nowadays young man, because everyone's influenced by us, like I said, and I can see your underwear walking down the street. This is with no judgment, but you are not going to change the world. You are not going to leave a legacy for your children, for your women, for your partner, for whatever it is that you stand for humanity to be better. That sci-fi experience where there's no disease and everything's infinite. You're not gonna be anything to do with that, because you can't even start to see or think or reach past the systems of control that have you show up in that way, that is the best way for you to carry yourself. And so if it can be heard in the words I'm saying, because it is a lot, to fathers, to leaders, to men showing up to do this thing in the world. Because inside of my work, I don't see a lot of men who aren't comfortable with how things are showing up. They want to step up themselves, step up the standards, and actually show up better as leaders. That's the way you have to start thinking if you want to leave a legacy. If you really want to step into manhood, step into leadership, step into masculine expression, and that's to anyone and everyone. Like what it really takes to make that happen. It's not a me, you, it's not a us, them, it's not a he, she, it's not any of those conversations. It's the pure energy of it. These are all just, I mean, it's all constructs that we create as humans. We're so tiny in the universal way of things. Masculine expression, mature masculine expression that appreciates feminine expression. That's why I'm not into the gender wars with my coaching around dating and social dynamics. Like, I'm not battling against anybody. We're all wrong. Let's just get right. Let's get some balance. Let's get what makes us all thrive. So yeah, I just have to put that out there. It just, yeah, I'm complete.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And, there's just one thing that I want to make sure that everybody out there listening really gets. And I've gotten this from so many conversations with Black fathers, is that Black fathers want to be in the home. They want to be allowed and accepted and contribute and all the rest of that. is a powerful drive. And so, this idea, this assumption that they're not good enough, they're not worthy, they're not going to be around, they're da 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 da, it continues to perpetuate that, and it does not allow them to be seen.
Mm. For who we are and what we do. The store has changed hands. Like that store went out of business. The environment that I was a product of, where the vast majority of men were not stepping into their fatherhood and their leadership, black men, that's changed. It's now frowned upon, shunned upon, because, and it's so beautiful as humanity and life be life in. You can't have the light without the darkness. You can't have the millions, the generations, the decades of little boys just like me who know what it feels like to be forgotten, to be left, to
Mm,
be handicapped at the start. Who am I? Who loves me? Why am I here? Where did I come from? All those unanswered questions, those tears that all little boys are experiencing, that grows up, not on my watch. Not going to happen again. Not for me, not for my sons, not for my nephews going around, not for the. I'm speaking to those men with the draws out that I can see, because it's the same. Nah, you're just forgotten. You're just left behind. Nobody has shown us better, and I can make a difference in that. Again, leadership. That's where leadership stands up to see something's wrong. I've got to do something about this. We can't let this continue, because I already know I'm the end product of. I am the darkness so that I can be the light for the future, for the next generation. That's what a legacy is built of.
mm. Ooh, I got chills. Yes. Okay, Duwayne, tell us about your work, how we can find more of it, get more of it, and have a difference made in the world. I still got them chills.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. My work stands store. I believe they got a QR code. Yes, I see it on the screen. So go and check out the store. I have just put out my ebook. It's a complete freebie, all about the divine masculine and feminine energy. It's a deep dive. We all have it. You, me, every single one of us. And when you can bring balance to that internally, you can bring it externally, and it makes the world a better place. I am committed to two things. You've been hearing it left and right in these conversations. Men, especially as a man, father, leader, all the things that nobody showed us. You can. I hope you hear it from my heart that I'm a stand, that it makes a difference in the future. And also relationships, social dynamics. I got a passion. I love my feminine counterpart. Like, it is a dance, and that's actually my ebook that's coming up next. The dance, just making sense and the step by steps of all this nonsense that's come up. They say there's piss in the dating pool. I absolutely agree. We got to get everybody out, clean this up, get some clear water so we can really dive in. But it's really just understanding how to love yourself, how to love everyone else. And to do that, getting down to these core principles is what I'm teaching, what I'm all about. You can work with me one on one, or I've got plenty of content available as well: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the socials and everything, and much more to come. But that's what I'm about, and that's what I'm going to stand for.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, man. Thank you for being on the show. I love your work. I love what you do. And I just have so much gratitude.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I love the conversation.
All right, everybody out there who joined us today. This is the ItCast Real Talk on Sex, our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. And through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. You can check out our work. This episode is brought to you by the House of Sherelle. You can find our online store at triggerhappytoy.com. Also by the International Institute for Sexual Empowerment, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that is creating a safe place to talk about sex. If you want to get one on one coaching with me, please visit my Calendly to book a free connection session. I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to serve you, and I cannot wait. You can get access to the bonus content on Patreon, learn more about our work at theitcast.com, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and share with your community. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.